Hello students. In this video, we are going to learn a lesson from civics, that is working of institutions. Usually, government has three organs: legislative, executive and judiciary. Legislative makes laws for the people in the parliament or in the assembly. Executive supervises the work, whether the laws are being properly implemented or not, and judiciary takes care if anybody causes damage to the laws or if any person goes against the laws, action will be taken by the judiciary. Apart from making laws in the parliament, government also does some works, like it issues day-to-day orders. Now, day-to-day administration of the government or the issuing of orders is called as office memorandum. Now, it is issued by the concerned authority, or it can be a policy or the decision by the government. It takes hundreds of decisions per day. Now, combinedly, it is called as the memorandum, office memorandum. The government of India had appointed a second backward classes commission in 1979. It is named after B.P. Mandal. As he headed the commission, it is named after him. Now, what is the main criteria for appointing this commission is to find out the socially and educationally backward classes people in the country. The commission gave its report in 1980 and made many recommendations. Basing on this, 27% of the government jobs are reserved for economically and socially backward people of our country. Now, the benefit of job reservation extended from SC/ST. In the beginning, this reservation system was applicable only till SC and ST people. Later, the third category has been suggested by BP Mandal Commission, that is SC/BC. It means socially, educationally backward classes. Now, these recommendations were recommended in the parliament, and the Janata government promised in its election agenda that if it forms the government, that they are going to provide reservations for the people under the leadership of VP Singh. And it came into force, it was implemented from April 13th, 1990. Now, when this reservation system was introduced in our country, obviously the newspapers and magazines publicized this issue. It reached all the common people. Many protests have been took place. Many people turned violent. Thousands of job opportunities went under the name of the reservations. Many people thought that it creates lots of inequality, whereas a few thought that it can reduce the inequality. So, this issue had both the things. Few people supported it and few people opposed it. And hence, this issue has been taken to the Supreme Court. And this case was known as Indira Swane and others versus Union of India case. Now, the main concern of this case is to stop the reservation system. Why? Because it creates hamper to the national unity. Whereas many people suggested that providing reservation for educationally and economically backward people can bring equality among the people, and many people's standard of living can grow, can increase. And then finally, Supreme Court gave its verdict that only the deserving candidate should be given reservations. Why? Because from backward people or SC/ST, not all the people are poor in the country. So reservation should be given on the basis of actually, on the basis who is actually deserving. So the Department of Personal Training issued another office memorandum on September 8, 1993. Now, what are actually political institutions? In India, the political institutions are arranging and carrying all the tasks of the government. In modern democracy, these arrangements are known as institutions. Now, working with the institutions is not easy. It has lots of rules and regulations. Sometimes the leaders, whatever they want to do, even if they want to do some good for the people also. They cannot do it. Why? Because they have to follow the rules and regulations, and at the same time it also controls the people from getting corrupted and doing unfair things. Institution involves meetings, committees, and routines. This often delays. Usually, as we are following this political institution system, the decisions taken by the government are often delayed. Why? Because one single person one single person cannot take the decision for the entire country, and hence the decision will be delayed. Some delays and complications are very useful. They provide an opportunity for a wider set of people to be consulted and taken decision. In India, these are the three important political institutions. As we have discussed earlier, the parliament or the legislative, executive, and judiciary. The Prime Minister and Cabinet Ministers in the central level, the Chief Minister and Council of Ministers in the state level, they are responsible for taking decisions in their respective levels. Executives, the civil servants, President, Vice President, police, they all work together to implement these decisions in the country. Judiciary, the Supreme Court and the institutions working under it like High Court, District Session Court and other courts, they take the responsibility of implementing. Or if any person goes against the laws or if any person causes damage to the laws, they will take care of it. Parliament in all democracies, an assembly of elected representatives exercise supreme political authority on behalf of the people. Now, in democracy, on behalf of the people, in our country, we are following indirect democracy. So, on behalf of people, the people's representatives take decisions for the people in the parliament. In India, such as National Assembly called as, our National Assembly is called as Parliament, and the same body in the state level is called as Legislature or Legislative Assembly. The name may vary. Each and every country has a parliament. Names may vary. What is the significance or what is the importance of parliament in democracy? The parliament exercises political authority on behalf of people in many ways. The primary responsibility of the parliament is the people's representatives make laws for the people. It can also change existing laws. Sometimes they implement or sometimes they modify the laws or sometimes they abolish the existing laws and they replace the new ones. So entire responsibility of making the laws for the entire country is in the hands of the people's representatives. And parliament also exercises control over those who run the government. No decision can be taken without the support of the parliament. Now, either an MP or an MLA or a minister, they cannot take the decision even for their own constituencies until the decision is being granted by the parliament. So parliament plays an important role. Parliament also controls the money matters. Now the financial budget, financial schemes are also introduced by the parliament for the entire country, and highest form of decisions and debate on public issues and national policies in any country. It can seek information about any matter. Different houses. Our Indian parliament is divided into two houses. One is the upper house and other is the lower house. Upper house is called as Rajya Sabha, whereas the lower house is called as Lok Sabha. One house is usually directly elected by the people and exercises the real power that we call as Lok Sabha, the lower house. The second house elected indirectly and performed some special functions. They were looking the interest of the various states, regions and federal units. That is Rajya Sabha, the upper house. The President of India is a part of Parliament, although he or she is not a member of either the houses. In all democracies, an assembly of elected representatives exercises supreme political authority on behalf of the people. In India, such a national assembly of elected representatives is called as parliament. In the state level, it is called as legislative assembly. As we have discussed earlier, Lok Sabha has a speaker whereas the Rajya Sabha is headed by the Vice President of the country. It is in Lok Sabha, the representatives are directly elected by the people. In India, there are maximum of 552 seats. The term of the Lok Sabha is 5 years, whereas the term of Rajya Sabha is 6 years. The Council of States or the Rajya Sabha. It usually elected indirectly and performs some special functions. The most common work of the second house is to look after the interest of the various states, regions, or federal units, like union territories. It has more than 250 members. 12 of Rajya Sabha members are nominated by the president from persons who have earned a distinction in the field of literature, art, science, and service. Rajya Sabha is a permanent body. So, like Lok Sabha, for every 5 years, elections are not conducted. Now, in Lok Sabha, after every 5 years, all the existing MPs and MLAs or the ministers, they will resign. And freshly elections are conducted, and new people or the old people, again, they may occupy their positions. But in Rajya Sabha, it is a permanent body. After every 2 years, elections are conducted for only 1/3 of its members. After 6 years, the people will retire. Rajya Sabha is a permanent body. At present, there are 245 members in Rajya Sabha distributed among different states and union territories. Let us now learn what is the difference between the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Lok Sabha members are directly elected by the people through voting, whereas Rajya Sabha members are indirectly elected. The period of Lok Sabha is 5 years, whereas the period of Rajya Sabha is 6 years. The maximum strength of Lok Sabha is 552, whereas the members of Rajya Sabha are 250. Money bills can also be introduced in Lok Sabha. It grants the money for the running of the administration of the country, whereas Rajya Sabha does not exercise any power over money bills. Lok Sabha enjoys more powers than Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha is not superior to Lok Sabha. The different levels of government and the functions takes place day-to-day decisions but do not exercise the supreme power on the behalf of the people. These functionaries are called as executive. Now, as we have studied earlier, the government organs are divided into three: legislative, executive, and judiciary. In the earlier part, we have studied about the legislative. Executive is the functionary which actually exercises the power, and it executes whether the laws or the orders are being properly implemented. In democratic country, executive that is elected by the people for a specific period of time is called as political executive or the political leaders. People who are appointed on a long-term basis are called as permanent executive or the civil servants like IAS, IPS, and government officials. Let us now learn the differentiation between the political executive and the permanent executives. Political executives are elected by the people, whereas permanent executives are appointed for a long time. They are the salaried employees. Political leaders like Prime Minister, Council of Ministers come under the category of political executive, whereas IAS, IPS, and IFS are the permanent executives. They remain in office. Political executives, they remain in office only as long as they have the confidence of the majority of the people of the parliament. Whereas permanent executives, they enjoy their powers till the end of their retirement. Political executives are answerable to the people, whereas permanent executives are not answerable to the people and they have less powers than the political executives. Political executives are more powerful and their decision is final. Let us now learn about the different type of Council of Ministers. Council of Ministers is the official name for the body that includes all the ministers. It usually has 60 to 80 ministers of different tasks like Education Minister, Finance Minister, and so on. Usually top level leaders of the ruling party who are in charge of the major ministries. They will become the cabinet ministers, and they are responsible for their respective ministries. Ministers of the state with independent charge are usually in charge of the smaller ministries. They participate in cabinet meetings only when specially invited. Ministers of state are attached to and required to assist cabinet ministers. The cabinet work as a team. No minister is independent and no one can take decision alone. Now all these ministers, cabinet ministers, council of ministers, and the civil servants, they work hand in hand unitedly for the progress of the country. Powers of the prime minister. He is the head of the political institution. He is appointed by the prime minister. Usually, the person who is senior in the political party who win majority of the votes of the people, usually they will become the prime minister. He is the head of the entire political party. He chairs cabinet meetings. He coordinates the work of the different departments. As he is responsible for the government, and different ministries are allotted for the different people. Now he is responsibility to coordinate with all the people and to allot the work. His decisions are final. In case of disagreement rise between the departments, he exercises general supervision of different ministries and ministers work under his leadership. So final powers are in the hands of the prime minister. The prime minister distributes and redistributes work to the ministers. He has the power to dismiss ministers. When the prime minister quits, the entire ministry quits. Thus, if the cabinet is the most powerful institution in India, within the cabinet, it is the prime minister who is the most powerful. Now, let us learn what is coalition government. The prime minister of the coalition government cannot take decision as he likes. First of all, what is coalition government? If the government does not have the confidence to form the government, or if it has any doubt that it cannot gain the majority of the votes, it it joins hands with the other political parties. It means 2 or 3 political parties join together before elections. That is called as coalition government. Coalition government, in short, 2 or more political parties working together to make decisions. Now, under this type of government, the prime minister cannot take the final decision. He has to accommodate different groups and factions in his party as well as among alliance partners. Why? Because he has to give respect to the opinion of other political party also with whom he have joined hands. He also has to heed to the view and positions of the coalition partners and other parties on whose support the survival of the government depends. Now he should offer some ministries also for the political party with whom he merged with. Election procedure of the President of India. The President of India is not directly elected by the people. All the members of the parliament, MPs, and the MLAs elect him. A candidate standing for the post of president has to get majority of the votes to win the elections. They ensure the President of India can be seen to represent the entire nation. Now, let us learn what are the powers of the president. He is the head of the country. He is considered as the prime citizen of the country. He exercises nominal powers. He is like a king or the queen of the country. He supervises all the functions of the political institutions, all government activities. No activity can be done without his notice, and all the laws will be implemented only after his signature. All major appointments are made in the name of the president. In case of emergencies, he will take care of the country or the state. He is the commander of the Defense Force of India. He appoints the Chief Justice of India, the judges of Supreme Court and the High Courts, the governor of the states, election commissioners, ambassadors to other countries. And his role is very much important because he is like a national ambassador, and maintaining peace with other countries is in his hands. Now, what are the limitations of the power of the president? The president, though he is the head of the country, his role is nominal. He cannot take any decision as he is not directly elected by the people. He can only give suggestions in making of the bill, whereas he cannot reject any bill. Let us now learn difference between the presidential and parliamentary form of governments. India is an example for parliamentary form of government, and America is an example for presidential system. The President of the United States is the head of the state and the government, whereas in India, it is not that. The role of the president is only nominal in our country. The President of America is directly elected by the people, whereas in India, it is not. He personally chooses and appoints the ministers. The legislature or the Congress making the law, but the president can veto any law. The president does not need the support of the majority of the members, and he is not answerable to them. He has a fixed period of 4 years and competes it even if his party does not have a majority in the Congress. So whatever supreme powers the president have in America, those powers the president of India does not have. Whereas, why? Because we are following presidential parliamentary form of government. All the decisions for the country are made by the prime minister in the parliament. When and how does the president exercise his discretion? When a party or a coalition of parties gets a clear majority in the elections, the president has to appoint the leader of the majority party or the coalition that enjoys the majority support in Lok Sabha. For example, Prime Minister. When no party or coalition gets a majority in the Lok Sabha, the president exercises his discretion. The president appoints a leader who, in his opinion, can muster majority support in Lok Sabha. Let us now learn what judiciary is. In our country, there are different levels of courts, but collectively they work under judiciary. It is an independent body. It is not inferior to either legislative or the executive, whereas it has the supreme powers over the legislative and executive. Under judiciary, under Supreme Court is the highest court in our country. Under the guidelines of the Supreme Court, courts of the different levels work in our country. The judiciary in India is also one of the most powerful in the world. Now, what are the responsibilities of judiciary? It settles the disputes between the citizens, between citizen and government, between two states, and between government and the union and state level. It is free from no legislature and executive can give orders to the judiciary. It interprets the constitution of the country. If anybody cause damage to the constitution or if anybody go against the constitution of our country, judiciary takes action. Judicial review. They can declare invalid any law of the legislature or the action of the executive, whether at the union level or at the state level, if they find such a law or action is against the constitution. In short, we can say that the judiciary is the guardian of the constitution. It is also the guardian for the fundamental rights. If any institution or if any person or if any organization causes any damage to the fundamental rights of the people, Supreme Court or the judiciary takes actions. Public interest litigation. Anyone who can approach the court if public interest is hurt by the actions of the government. It prevents the misuse of the government power. It also exercises the power of removing the judges and appointing the judges of the Supreme Court and High Court. The senior-most judge of the Supreme Court is usually appointed by the Chief Justice. Once a person is appointed as a judge of Supreme Court or the High Court, it is nearly impossible to remove him or her from that position. A judge can be removed only by an impeachment motion passed separately by 2/3 members of the two houses of the parliament. It has never happened in the history of the Indian democracy. Hope this video is useful. Thank you.